Guillermo.
Okay, ready?
Yeah,
Ready? Right.
yeah, let's do it.
All right. Welcome to Soccer As We Like It, the Man
Like I
United
said,
Guys sharing the channel for United and football fans, the biggest and best fan channel in the United States. We are here talking about Sir Jim Ratcliffe has finally come out to reveal the truth. This is more like the X-Files meeting the New Files. Joining me today, the one and only singing director, Houston Red Army, Louis.
Howdy, brother.
Also joining us on the show today is the one, Mr. Positive, the Soul Man. We haven't seen you in a while. How are you, brother?
well,
Right, a bombshell was dropped. I won't call it a bad bombshell. I would say information that we've all known about. But Sir Jim came out. He did interviews. He's literally on tour. He went to Sky Sports, did a Gary Neville interview. Went to BBC Sports, did another one. He did another one of the Times. He's literally opening his heart, giving the fans what they want to hear. It's things that we already know about. So let's quickly dive into the things that he talked about. He talked about since Sir Alex Ferguson retired, the club has spent close to 1 billion in terms of money. But he cannot see where that what has been achieved. We've not won a single league title. Bad investment, bad players. He talked about players were overpaid, poor quality, and he talked about he was even able to admit that they made the wrong decision by not sacking Ten Hag. So we're gonna dive into him admitting him and his team. He said they were too new to make that decision on Eric Ten Hag. He just won the FA Cup. They'd only been there 3 weeks together. He said so it was so hard to decide what to do. What do you think about them not making that decision at the right time at that time? Because they were not there enough to make that decision. I mean, they could, but they were still trying to balance the ship. Louis, what's your take on that one?
Um, I'm trying to be careful with my words here. The interview overall gave me the impression that Sir Jim and rather like the Ineos management
Mm,
is is a very clear case of everybody's been in that company where like you have like the higher up like ownership and like CEO types and like those high like administration and they're completely disconnected from like the staff, like the everyday workers and the
working
everyday
people, yeah.
problems of what's like going on the ground. And for me, that's really what's highlighted in the entirety of the interview because it's like they come in and he says something around like, oh, we've spent almost £1 billion and we can't see where it went. We all know where it went. It went towards interest payments on debt. That's why you can't see where it went because it all went to the bank. It's not there. And you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to uncover that. All you have to do is ask Kathy in accounting. You have to go down towards your line workers, to the people that have been there and get a real consensus about where the problems are. And this is something that we talk about with managers all the time. We're like the manager comes in, he says, "Oh, I'm going to get the best out of these players." And I don't understand necessarily where the problems of the previous coach. I don't understand why he couldn't get the best out of these players. You didn't ask. You came in and you were like, right, we're in charge now. We're going to do it our way and it's going to work because this is our grand plan and we're all the smartest people. And, again, it goes back to you didn't really ask the people who knew. You might have came in and opened the books and had a look yourself and maybe, drawn some conclusions from what you could uncover, but you didn't really do a deep dive into understanding what the actual problems are and where
Right,
and how best to solve it with the people that you had.
right. Joe, when you heard that interview, what did you grab from all of it? Did you feel he was being honest?
felt like he was being honest. To piggyback on what Lou was saying, the thing about it is, like, yes, you felt like maybe they didn't do a deep dive. The thing is, they probably did it. They probably did do a deep dive. The thing is, the same thing with managers, the same thing with players, the same thing with potential investors and owners. Manchester United, forget my words, is still a baddie. And sometimes, right, you're going to maybe concede certain ideologies or certain where you go about things just to get in the door. And it seems like that's
Right.
exactly what happened.
Right.
And this was believe it or not, was an excellent interview for Ineos
Right.
because he like he did his best to try to not shit on the Glazers, but it's clear
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
the reasons why we are the way we are right now, especially financially and especially with the pay structure that we have, these contracts that we're stuck with, is because he like made it clear like the Glazers and Woodward and them, they were chasing the Champions League and they bet big. He told them they bet big. They put money on there and they fucking wiped out because they didn't have their recruiting rate, you know? Um, this interview actually helped them out because it makes them seem like they're almost kind of victims in the same situation. Like I wouldn't say the same exact situation, but yeah, they're like basically they've come in. He's invested his money. He said that all that money is almost gone, right? The fan base wants them to invest more money, but like he's here, and it's like it's clear that the Glazers have like they got their hands tied behind their backs. There's not much that they can do, especially with these bad contracts. So overall, I respect the man for showing up. The timing, of course, if there's one thing this club knows how to do, it's a drop a motherfucking interview.
Yeah.
Man, man, man.
The timing was perfect.
Was the timing was and you know what? There was nobody else that could have done that interview but Sir Jim Ratcliffe.
Yeah.
Because if it was the Glazers, nobody was gonna believe anything
No.
that
No.
any
No.
of them said. Nobody gonna give a fuck.
Right.
And yeah, I think it worked out in their favor very much. And I I I kind of will pull back a little bit on the Ineos thing because it seems like they're victims too, man. They got too.
It seemed so.
It's looking like they got too.
Yeah.
If I could push back a little bit on that.
Mm.
Please do, my brother.
So if you if you're like poking around on like Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter, kind of like the reactions around this whole interview and this whole process, I think that that's exactly what an Ineos type and a Glazer type wants you as the fan base to feel like they are victims. Mate, they're not victims. They're not victims. One of the moments in the interview that's being highlighted a lot, that's making kind of people like kind of chuckle or kind of laugh, but also realize that it's just more spin, is when Gary asked him about the 40K pension fund for
Yes.
former players.
Yeah. For the
And
ex footballers,
yeah, for ex-footballers. And he's like, get Bruno, get Harry, do a
a
thousand
fundraiser. He
plate
said no one
dinner,
suggested it to him. I mean,
and
Gary was
and
like,
and
no
he's
one.
like, and you can see his face, like he reels back for a second, and you kind of see, for me that was the most honest moment because he was like,
Wait,
I just got caught,
wait,
and he goes. And then he like tries to like shake it off and he's like, that's a great idea. Nobody posed that to me. Dude,
wait,
you're
hold on.
telling me it's just
I'm sorry.
you're telling me that the reason you cut the fund is because nobody came up with a good idea in your management staff. It just it reeks
Well,
of,
that was just
and
poor. That was poor.
again it just reeks of like that separation between ownership, board, stockholder, and the actual people that are involved in the making and the running of something and making it successful. That's a very small example, like the 40K for former players and that kind of
Mm,
thing. But what it highlights is that disconnect between what's important within the club and
mm,
the actual decisions that are being made. I
yeah.
can the parallel I can draw towards it is like Doge with like Elon, where like they cut something and people go, wait a minute. If you cut this, like this is actually a really big thing, and it actually puts us in a really bad place, and you can't cut it. And he's like, oh, my bad. Let's call them up and tell them that they're actually not fired and ask them to come back to work on Monday. It's that situation. It's like you cut this thing and it's again it's relatively small in comparison to the actual running of Manchester United, but it's actually something where it's like, look, you're losing number one kind of what the club is all about and the
Right,
culture of the club, but
Yeah.
you're also creating a further disconnect from your fan base, and
right.
you're angering a lot of people. And to for him to kind of be like, oh, you caught me, and then just be like, again,
No
playing
one
the
told me about it. No one suggested it.
like, well,
Like,
playing the victim and
aren't you guys supposed to be experts?
passing it off to being like,
I,
oh well, the people that I pay to come up with ideas didn't offer me that idea, and man, that's just it.
I mean, even the players, $1,000 per player counts would Casimiro's weekly pay can pay literally half of those staff's 1 year pay.
I understand that, but we cannot take $40,000 from Casemiro, can we? That's
No.
illegal.
Yes.
So wait. Let me ask you a quick question. Was it a fund for $40,000, or was it $40,000 for each player from like the '70s and shit for former
It
players?
was,
It like in total cost $40,000.
yeah.
Okay,
And again,
so
the numerical value isn't really the point. The point is that you made a decision without really doing the homework and the
Research and
background to
yeah,
understand what the effect of that decision is.
right.
So then you kind of
listen.
you look at like decisions that are being made as a whole, and it's like it's a lot of these Ineos decisions, and a lot of them seem cruel, and a lot of them seem like all these kinds of things. But really, what it is it's from a corporate standpoint, like trying
Mm,
to trim the fat without actually doing your research and realizing that you actually might be cutting something important. Again, is the 40K fund for players of the 70s and the 80s like important to the actual running in the football of Manchester United? No, it's not.
no, it's
But
not.
what it does kind of highlight is the fact that you're making decisions that have an effect on the club, and then you're kind of trying to blame it on the people under you, which
Right, right.
anyone who's been in a large company, like you've had that happen to you, where the CEO or somebody comes down and has an idea, and they're like, hey, make this happen, figure it out. And then you're just like, oh my God, how are we gonna make this happen? Do we even have
Right,
funding for this?
right, right.
Like, or who are we gonna have to fire in order to like make this happen?
Mm.
It's very much a disconnect from what is actually the culture of the club and what is needed by the club. And then, like you said, it makes Ineos look like a victim when really they're not the victim. Like,
Right.
you signed up for this.
Okay. So he talked about certain players. He mentioned Casemiro, he mentioned Rashford, he mentioned Anthony, he mentioned Sancho,
Sancho,
he mentioned Mount. He said when you collectively put,
Shaw,
he mentioned sure collectively put those players all together. He said none of them are, apart from Casemiro, none of them literally playing. Those are loaned out. The cost of those, he said, some of is in some cases it was somewhat overpaid in terms of
Somewhat.
purchasing.
can I
Huh?
ask Louis a question? Can I
Yeah,
ask Louis a
yeah.
question? Louis, if the names that Tim just called out, right? If we were able to get those guys off the books this summer, do you think any of us would have still cut off the 40K, the lunches, and all of that this season?
Again, probably. I think they would have. Again, because
Okay.
it's not from a cultural club standpoint. It's from a corporate cost cutting standpoint.
Yes.
I think that those are the biggest costs that they're trying to cut. I really do
Right.
believe that they're trying to cut those costs because I mean, any uh, teenage kid who's a fan of Manchester United could look at those players that are not playing and on 350K a week and go, you start there. Like it's very clear. But
Yeah. Yeah.
at the same time, like for me, nothing that Sir Jim has
He even said Mount hasn't played in nearly 2 years, which is a
well,
shame.
nothing that he has said, and I'm talking like pre-interview, like before, like since he's come in to the interview, nothing that he has said and nothing that Ineos has done, no decisions that they have done, strike me as decisions that are based in the culture and the running of the actual club or based on the football. Everything that they have done so far looks like it is from an accounting corporate standpoint. And that's not necessarily to say that it is a bad thing, but
But
what
we
it
do
does,
have, we have an accounting corporate issue,
no,
a massive
100%,
accounting corporate
1000%,
issue. So
1000%.
we
But
need
100%.
people to come at the team with with an accounting. You can't culture your way out of debt,
no, 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 no,
right?
no.
Like we
That's not
still
what that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like I agree with you 100%. You have to crack open the books in order to solve the problem. 1000%. What I'm saying though, is that they are making cuts based on financial decisions without actually realizing the repercussions of those decisions. And that can lead to uh, further financial problems and then problems within the rank and file, as it were, within the club. You have
like
to do it. You have to do it from a if you really wanted to save all the money and solve the problem, like you could just say, we will, you could cut literally everything and just be like, we're gonna run a bare bones club, prob, and we know we have the global fan base. We can still we can still generate some amount of revenue, maybe nowhere near what we're running now. Pay off the debt. Maybe we'll end up in the championship. Maybe we'll end up in League One, and you could go about it that way. But
Right,
obviously,
right,
that wouldn't make sense for like an entire club standpoint, right? So you
right.
you have to finesse your way through each decision.
Mm,
And and what starts to happen is like you make a decision, you realize there is either a fan, staff, or financial backlash of the decision because you didn't do your homework, and now you're kind of trying to walk it back and and make it look like make it look like it
right.
wasn't a bad decision. Like
right.
you try to cover your butt in a
Right.
sense. You know what I mean? And for me, it's just you know it's like you say, like if they had tackled those massive contracts first. uh,
Exactly.
there's a way out of those. There's a way out of
But
those contracts. Maybe
no,
there is
no.
financial
Well, these are multi-year contracts, and
100%.
the man told us in this interview that we were going to run out of money this November,
December.
this fall. These are multi-year contracts that we would still have to pay, unless went into
But they're still
bankruptcy or
paying
whatever.
half of
If we were
they're
still
still
You
paying
paying
know,
half
those
of
contracts,
Radford.
yeah. Like
if we were
I
still paying
just
those contracts, that's yeah. No, don't get me wrong. Look, I'm not saying that there's a quick fix, wave your magic wand, and then cut the contract. Absolutely not. There's probably some kind of buyout, or there's some kind of deal you have to make with another club that's probably going to heavily favor the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally understand that, that concept. I think what I'm saying is in order to make cuts as fast as possible, you started from the bottom
Yeah.
instead of attacking the biggest problems within the club. And maybe in doing so, maybe that would mean that you would run out of money by Christmas and you couldn't do it that way. Okay, fair play. But then you turn around and you announce a brand new stadium
oh,
the same day. Come on.
but you understand that the finances for the stadium is not the same as the finances that we can use for the stadium and getting more
Yes.
players. It's
But
it's
what it
not. Those are
but
there's a completely different
The
financial
the, the,
structure
the,
for
the, the, the
those two
yes,
stadium, the
things.
but
UK government is gonna put
Yes,
some money into that
he
because
said it
yeah, but
himself in the
sustainability,
interview that they couldn't
employment.
afford to build a new
no,
stadium.
and I understand that, but the other blowback that you get from that is now that the UK taxpayers is essentially footing that bill, and now you have, and again, it might even be a
But
small
it's
portion, but now you
created
have a portion of
90,000 jobs.
allegedly.
No, no, no.
Allegedly,
On the
I would
grand
Allegedly.
imagine
scheme
those.
of things, in the grand scheme of things, 90,000 jobs,
Ultimately,
17,000
Wait,
new homes.
well, at the end of the day, you're never going to
but those
make
homes are going to be affordable. Like that, you got to get into the details. Like because we've heard.
True.
No, don't get me wrong. If there's something that's about this club that's very, very American, is that whole aspect of public funding of new stadiums. We've seen teams, NFL teams,
No,
baseball
okay, the
teams,
NFL
basketball
thing
teams do
kind
the
of
same thing
different.
here. Right.
If you see the
it's
way they did the
no,
White Hart
it's
Lane one, the way they did White Hart Lane, they still use is the same place. They just
yeah.
demolished and raised up and expanded around the same area. It's still the same. And what they did, they created more jobs, created new offices around the area. So it still brings in revenue. But Spurs is not a club that pulls in like that. In Man United, if they build this new stadium, do you know the stratospheric size of people wanting to come there? Revenue globally coming into UK to go because if you think about it,
Wait. Oh, we're making the
coming from the south of London, there's everything in London. You got Wembley's there, you got Twickenham, you got White Hart Lane, you got Emirates, you got the biggest stadiums. But up north, there's not really other than Old Trafford and Anfield. There's really not much in terms of stadium. So this would be a eye-catching, monumental thing for them to do, which would really be. I'm looking forward to that. That'd be fantastic.
Don't get me wrong. I think once the project is actually done, yeah, like it's an exciting venture. I
Yeah, I
think
love it.
I think that what I was kind of more getting at is that you have to realize that there is a human factor involved, and you have to take care of the people of Manchester first and the
Of
area. I
course,
mean,
that's why
and look,
they're
and
gonna
look, this
create
is
jobs there.
and this is literally my first time in Manchester. I've been walking around all day. I did the stadium tour and all that kind of stuff. And like, you look at you look at some of these buildings and you realize, like, man, that building's been here
Oh
way
yeah.
longer than
Even
anybody.
if you go down there, Sir Matt Busby way, you see
Yeah,
those houses
sure
there.
they,
They're
yeah,
from the World War. They're
and
terrace houses.
there's a history and a culture and a community here that
Yeah,
is invaluable, of course,
yeah.
100%. So
Not gonna change. They ain't going
my
anywhere anytime soon.
my question is, if you build this whole, what looks like, you put this picture up, it basically looks like this footballing metropolis utopia. Who are you displacing? What are you displacing? And what is the financial effect on the people around for the duration of the actual construction?
5 years it'll
The,
take.
the people I've been
So
talking
the old Trafford
around
will still
here
be
are
in place.
estimating 7 to 10.
Mm.
Um, you have what the club actually says, and then you have the kind of the people on the ground who are kind of like more realistic. Like that, I was talking to one of the I guess stadium tour guides who's literally was, I mean, he's been a Manchester United fan his whole life. He told the story of
Is that the
watching.
guy who does the announcement? What's his name? Oh,
No, it's literally just a guy that's like,
okay.
does the tours, and like there's several of them, but I mean, he was inside Old Trafford when Maradona and Barcelona lost in
1983.
in the European League. And like he was, yeah, he's been here, and he's like, look, he's like, something like this. He's like, we've seen kind of projects that have happened like around Manchester, and he's like, this is, I wouldn't be surprised if it takes like 7 to 10 years. He's like, I don't know what they're gonna do with this ground. He's like, but demolishing it and building it up, where would we go in the interim? He's like, there's a lot of questions that it leaves. For me, an interview like this, honestly, it leaves way, way, way more questions than it
Right.
answers. And for me,
of course.
like, my biggest fear is that it's a load of spin. And it might not
Right.
be, it might not all be, but it
Right.
feels that way. It
So he
just feels
talked
that way
about
because it seems like he's shifting blame and trying to make Ineos look like a victim.
right, and I see that. And he talked about the Dan Ashworth thing, the guy who they chased from Newcastle, went on gardening leave, £4 million, blah blah blah, compensated Newcastle, got the guy in. Everything was working, but he said there was no chemistry between him with Dan Ashworth and the operations team. There was no chemistry between him and technical director. There was no connection between him and Jason Wilcox and with him and Barada. So when he had the decision, because I think Ashworth wanted Ten Hag to stay.
Mm.
And at this point, the results were going further and further left than going right. So with that in place and him kind of solo, they said they had to make that decision. They had to cut ties with Dan Ashworth, with paying him another couple of millions after they spent 6 months chasing him.
Yeah.
Under 2 months, goodbye and good night. But he admitted that was wrong. He admitted Ten Hag, they should have sacked him after the FA Cup, but they didn't have enough, what would I say, enough information to decide should we give him time? Because they were all still new on the job because they just put this new operational team together, which I get
I have two thoughts on that, but I'm interested to hear what Joe has to say about it first.
in reference to the Ten Hag and
To the Dan
the
Ashworth,
Dan
Ten
Ashworth
Hag.
one. Yes, go on quickly,
It
Joe.
sounded like
Okay, we have two situations in which, don't get me wrong, card carrying member of the Ten Hag Brigade, Defense Brigade. Um,
I was
it
too.
is clear. It is clear, right? And I'll be the first to admit, I was defending him, but under this new structure, this team has decided that they they didn't make a knee jerk um, um, decision to sack him, and that was only because, and it's clear in the interview, it was only because they were not able to get another manager that they felt was better than him in
Yeah,
the
at
summer,
that time. Yeah.
right at that time, right. Now, he refrained to saying anything about Dan Ashworth, right, and the actual nature
He
of
just kept saying
the
chemistry,
lack
kept
of
saying
chemistry.
chemistry.
It could, that you say chemistry, I say there's probably ethos, there's probably a direction that Ashworth wanted to go with that the rest of the guys did not want to go with, right?
Hmm.
And you have to give them a little bit of credit, right? To they have to they understand that they have to be unified for good or bad. That leadership at the top level cannot be divided as far as like where they want, because that shit is going to trickle down into the locker room.
Yeah.
You can't move around where half your team or 30% of your team thinks they're riding with Ashworth, and he probably wants to bring Southgate in or whatever. He has a different idea of it is clear that at this point, Ten Hag had lost. They gave him the benefit of the doubt, and it was up to Ten Hag with his players, right, and with the players that he had, right. It was up to Ten Hag to one decide if he was going to force his way and make sure that he continued playing his style of play, right, or two, right, get rid of players, get rid of people that weren't in the locker room that didn't fit his vision, right? But Ten Hag did not do that, and unfortunately, he had to get sacked. And I'm seeing what I did not see with Ten Hag with with
Amarin.
Amarin, and hearing that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is giving him the full chested backing. That's confidence. That's confidence in me. I
It
think
is.
that's good for the
But he
club.
did
I
say
think that's good for the club.
there was something he did say. He did say during the whole Eric Ten Hag's period, it was very erratic. Erratic in the
Yeah,
sense he didn't really have a structure like there is before they came in. It was just kind of
yeah.
like, okay, let him see if he could fix it.
And that may not have even been Ten Hag's fault.
No, not really.
He just
Not really
came
his
in
fault. Yeah.
chaos. You know.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
came into chaos,
yeah,
left whereby a new structure come in, and things results were going left. They were still like, should
yeah.
we sack? Should we not sack? Should we sack? Who's around? No one available. Let's give him more time. Give him more time. Give him more time. All right, Southgate. Southgate's he had to go.
If I could jump in there,
Yeah,
I
jump in swiftly.
what I always try to do is I always try to play it as nuanced as I possibly can and try to
Mm,
see both sides, because again, we're not there, we don't know.
right.
So if you tell me that with Dan Ashworth, there's no chemistry and it's not a good fit and he's not get along with the staff and that kind of thing, that's totally possible. It's totally possible. It's happened to me. I've gotten jobs where I thought it was going to be a great job.
Mm,
You get in and maybe the structure isn't what you like, and
yes.
the people you butt heads. Sometimes it's just not a good fit. And
Hmm.
that is 100% perfectly plausible.
On paper, it looked like a good fit.
However, however, another side of me, kind of playing devil's advocate on this one, what it sounded like, because again, like you said, it wasn't a whole lot of detail. It was just it wasn't good chemistry. It wasn't good chemistry. It wasn't a good
Mm,
fit.
mm.
Did you want another manager and you're a director of football who we all agreed we really, really needed someone in that position, and you went out and you got one of the best ones around. Dan Ashworth's CV is top tier. It is Ivy League. It is elite.
Mm,
And when at the first sign that a person in a position of power that you gave the power, again, you're above him, you're Ineos, you're above him, and you hired him, but he does have a level of power and he does have a level of say over the manager and the football. The first sign that he didn't agree with you and that he wasn't going to do what you want in order to override him, because you couldn't override him in the position. So what you did was you fired him to get your way and to get what you wanted. And to me, that sounds like Glazernomics. That sounds like the old way of running the football club.
right.
Because what we, you talk about running out of money by Christmas, but it's 10 million to sack Ten Hag. It was like 4 or 5 million to sack Dan Ashworth.
Yeah.
And again, you could argue that long term, it would be a better decision and maybe make more revenue to have different people. And if that is really the truth, then that is a hard decision for a person, in a leadership position to make. I I don't know how I would make that decision. I agree. It would be a very, very hard decision
Right.
if that was the case.
Right.
But, I also wonder, it's like, again, you say that you were put in this really difficult position, and like we feel like the victims and these kinds of things, but at the same time you're bringing in people and cutting people the second there's some conflict, and
Right.
there's some
Very good point. Very good point.
I really, really wonder what deeply went into those decisions, because
Right.
again, Dan Ashworth, and
We would never know. We would never
I
know.
don't know him personally, but you look at the CV, and I mean, this is a guy who is top of the game, and you fired it. It reminds me of Ranić. Ranić is for as far as like a director of football
Mm,
position, and again, he
right.
never got there like he was supposed to, but like someone who knows how to build a club and knows how to identify problems with the club. He pushed back, told you what the problems were, and when you didn't agree with him, he stood firm, and
Glazonomics.
you canned him.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let me ask you, what have we seen any evidence that the way Ragnick was talking, where as fans we understand that that's the direction we wanted to go. These are flaws that we saw in our club. Is there any evidence that shows that Dan Ashford felt the same way about the club and he was seeing the door because of that?
I think yes, there's some similarities to what Ragnick said. Ragnick, oh, the famous word was open heart
Where's the
surgery.
evidence? No, 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 no.
No,
I
no,
don't want
no.
to hear what I know what Ragnick said.
Right.
I want to hear where it was said by the individual that was said,
Well, I think it goes down
Ashford.
towards I think it goes down towards what Sir Jim was saying, where there's like this disagreement over the manager. And
Because
that's
it
again,
comes down
That is vital to a football club, right? Like
right.
well,
there's
it's really
conflict.
well, it's really difficult because you don't hear it from the man himself. They never put Dan Ashworth in front of the camera, right?
No.
So you put Sir Jim in front of the camera and you only get one side of a story. And
Yes.
you say that there's this disagreement over the manager. But again, this is a guy uh, who knows how to run a football club and knows how to deal with budgets, and he understands how the footballing has to generate revenue, and he understands that we need to be successful in order to make money and these kinds of things, like
Yeah,
and
I,
and he
I,
and he goes to you and he goes to you and he says, "Look, I think firing this guy at this time is a bad idea. I think, and again, this is trying to drag from what Sir Jim said, because, like I said, there's not a whole lot of detail.
Yeah.
He's like, it's not the right decision at the
And they
moment, and I
knew the
agree.
chance.
And I
They
agree
knew.
the results. I agree the results at the time were completely all over the place, winning crazy games, losing stupid games, like it was all over the place.
Mm.
But again,
That's why you do erratic.
we
It
we
was
understand
really
I,
we understood what I think we all understood at the time what firing that manager would have meant and what it would have cost. And your director of football, who you hired, said that it was a bad idea. And when you didn't agree, you hired him for his expertise, and you didn't take his expertise. When he fought against you, you fired him. And that's, again, I'm trying to play both sides, because like I said, if Sir Jim and his team really looked at it and was like, this guy He makes some valid points, but we really do believe he's wrong, and we have this plan. Um, Again, super difficult decision, and if he made it, good on him. Like that is what you're supposed to do in a leadership role. But it sounds like, and it seems like it could have been. And again, you're right. It's speculation,
Yeah.
but it seems kind of the other way because, like you said, like in the summer they wanted to fire him, but it was like, who do we get? And then you kind of go to Ruben Amorim, and
Yes,
again, I
because
agree.
if we didn't have somebody to replace him with of equal standing that was available at the time, you understand that would have been a ridiculous move for them to just sack him, right? That
Yeah.
that's the kind of move that would lead to holding on to Van Nistelrooy for 6 months, and Van Nistelrooey would have been the one
Yeah,
that
honestly,
gotten the
that might not
sack.
have. Honestly, like looking back, that might not have been the worst idea. Holding on to
It-
Ruben.
let me say one quick thing about executives are no different than players, right? You can bring in a player that comes from class, comes from a great organization, comes from a history of winning, and he just comes to Manchester United and looks shit. We've had that multiple times. We've had
Yes.
Yeah,
Pogba, we've had
100%.
Casemiro, we've had Varane, right? The same thing applies to
Executives.
executives. Executives, just like players, thrive in systems that work for them.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's the way I'm coming at it from the Ineo standpoint. The
Mhm.
system did not work with Ashford. That's not saying that Ashford couldn't go to another club and fucking knock it out the park. McTominay this motherfucker, right?
Yeah.
But that does
No,
not that does
I
not
think you're
necessarily
right. I
mean
think you're
that
right. It's like I
we were
said.
wrong
It's
to
like,
get rid of him.
There was something
yeah,
you
no,
did mention that they kind of realized how big, enormous the problem was and how big this club and how bad it was run when they finally got in there. It's like when they now went through the books, like, oh shit. Maybe he didn't want to really admit it that they kind of underestimated it a bit.
ooh,
I'm going to go as far as to say they probably didn't have full view of
Picture.
the books.
Yes.
Yes, they did
Yeah.
not, and that's
Glazers
why
kind of just showed
that's
them
what.
once
Yeah, they showed them.
slice.
They twerked a little bit, and then they let them in. They let them into the champagne room, and then
Yep.
they realized there's a bunch of herpes in here.
here's
So
here's
that's the problem.
the only pushback I have against that because you guys are right. Maybe they didn't know the fullest of details, like
Hmm.
the whole
I think
complete.
they didn't know the fullest of details.
I
However,
don't
I'm
think
with
so.
going with
But
both.
they
however,
will never admit that though. They cannot
No,
admit that
no, no.
because they'll look like even bigger
They'll
fools.
look incompetent.
here,
Yes.
here's the thing. Here's my pushback on that. Sir Jim, you said from your mouth that you were a lifelong
United
Manchester
fan.
United fan. Lifelong. And, you know, for guys like us, and again, we don't know, we're not behind the scenes, but we follow as much as we possibly can. That is as much as is public that we possibly can.
Yeah.
And we knew that the problems were enormous as the fan base. Now, you're in a position where you can buy 25% of the club, and you're telling me you didn't have more information than the general public? You might not have had all the information. You might not
Yeah,
have
I
even
think he didn't
most
have
damaging
enough,
information. But
enough,
yet,
enough.
but you had more than we did. So to
Oh,
come in
but
and say that you were, or to insinuate, because maybe they didn't say it outright, but
yeah.
to insinuate that you came in that you were blindsided by some of the problems, that's a tough one for me to
Right,
digest.
right,
I,
That's
right.
that's
I can only accept that because I know that the Glazers are diabolical.
that's
These
true.
100%.
guys,
That's true.
this family, they are straight up DC level, DC comic level, WWE level, Marvel
The heels,
level
man.
villains. Just like merge, they are. It's evil empire with these guys, man. They are the Richie.
Thanos.
They are Thanos. They don't give a damn, man. They don't care about football. They don't care
Right,
about this
right.
team. They don't care about. They don't care about none of that. And they are smart and shrewd businessmen.
Of course.
because here they are. They have gotten a Briton as their shield for
He
them to
really bailed
continue
them
making
out.
money.
He really bailed them out,
He
man.
really
Yeah,
did.
he really
He
did. He
saved
really did. And
Blazers.
he's
And for
he
me,
he's got to know he looks like a sucker right now.
Yes, he
I
does.
think for me that's why it's very difficult, I think, to trust Ineos overall. It's especially at face value, like especially when you kind of do an interview like this, where like every moment where it looks like you're trying to shift blame, we're gonna hold that under the microscope because that's what we've seen for the last
Right,
17
right,
plus
right.
years.
Mate,
You know,
true.
it's like,
Very
You
true.
do
every
understand they
time you
bought
try
it.
to shift
You do understand they bought into a company that was losing money.
Yeah.
We are a
Ineos,
distressed asset.
Ineos was losing money or
No,
Blazers.
United is losing money.
The
We're
United is
losing money.
losing money. So after everything he said, he went to BBC, did the same thing. He talked on all the things we talked about. He talked about recruitment, Ericsson, I mean Ten Hag, Amrin. He did I did like, and I want to end on that note when he said they support Amrin. They would Amrin Barad said he would like for Amrin to lead United into the new stadium and this new Trafford they have the vision of. He would love that very well.
Byron.
Sir Jim he said, Jason Wilcox speaks to Amrin like 3 times a day. Barada speaks to him. They speak very regularly. So he was kind of hinting that chemistry between Amrin and Ashwood was not there like the way these are. There's constant communication. He sees him regularly. So that might be the reason why they thought, you know what, this guy, we're gonna have to put this one out. But the confidence they have in Amrin, they said the budget they have now is a budget for Everton because the players they have. He said we looked on the bench on Sunday, players we don't 16-year-old, the guy's only been in the club
Yeah.
about 3 weeks. It's where
Mud,
we
man.
are,
We're
you
in the
know.
mud.
Heaven made his debut this week. I mean, he's what, 6, 17, 18.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah,
it's
I heard a lot of good things. Again, I
yeah,
didn't
he
see.
played he played
He
well.
was
He
he was
was
he played well. He did solid for somebody that age against Arsenal. In a game like
yeah,
this, where
yeah,
they needed to win this game to get close to Liverpool, even though they was probably going to bottle it anyway down the line, right? For him to come and like he felt like it looked like he had something to prove, being a former Arsenal player. That I'm just excited about what this team. And I get it. I get it. For all their flaws, they are not. They're not perfect. They are making mistakes.
right.
They're acting on mistakes very quickly. They're acting on their mistakes very quickly.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to say that it's knee jerk, but it's coordinated.
Mm.
It would have been knee jerk to sack Ten Hag when he says, "I didn't have the necessary information to sack this guy." Because we had just gone here. We're just, like people at that level, companies that come in to spruce. And I'm not trying to be like this corporate, shell, just saying it's always good for any companies to come in and just reorganize and lay a bunch of people off and stuff like that. But I think that's why I feel like if we made the Champions League or we were in like Europe, I think the reason why a lot of these costs cutting measures are happening because they know we're not going to win the Europa League. They know we're not going to be in Europe. They have
Next
to
season,
protect
yeah.
themselves. We're running out of money by the fall, so you got to protect yourself in case that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
Yeah.
something that the Glazers did not do. This is something
Yeah.
that Woodward did not do.
Yep.
They did not protect the club.
Nope.
That's why we're in the position that we are now.
Yep.
So I get it, man. I get it. It's like I'm not here saying all those people deserve to lose their jobs,
No.
right? But we don't deserve to lose our club.
No. Not at all. Under no circumstances.
Like
So
like if it was a choice, right? If it was a choice between that individual keeping his job and us still having a club that is that might go insolvent, like or go bankrupt at the end of the year. What are we picking? What are we talking about here? You know? That's all I'm
I
saying.
valid points from
Cute,
everybody.
cute, cute
Valid points.
violin, man. There was a lot of emotion in that
It,
rant
it,
there, brother. I felt
it
I
is.
felt it in my core, bro. I felt the love. I felt the emotion.
And what they did,
Clip it
I'm just
what
up,
they
saying
man.
did,
Clip it up.
and
we're all in a really we're all trying to figure it out, and I
Yeah.
think they're trying to figure it out too. They're trying to figure it out just like we are. I'm
right.
not
Honestly,
saying like just because an individual is rich, that doesn't necessarily mean they have all the answers and things is all sweet. People
No,
at that level, they want to build legacies. Like when you
definitely.
get to that level and you have money, right? When you have money, there's a certain point where you have so much money, it doesn't even fucking matter how much money,
Right,
because you're always going to have to maintain. You're going to maintain a certain lifestyle.
right.
But now it's about legacy and what you can do. What like how are people going to remember you? And this individual at his age is not at Manchester United to just make money. He's trying to build a legacy. And if he feels like this is what he needs to do to build the legacy, because the Glazers don't give a fuck about the legacy of this club, don't give a fuck about the legacy of where we're going. They just know at the end of the day, when they are done with us, they will sling us to the next dude or whatever for billions. They know they got a golden parachute regardless of what they do. So they
Yeah,
don't give a fuck.
if,
right,
But
if
this person seems like he does,
right.
which is
So
a change.
let's round up quickly.
Yeah.
So it is funny, like there's something you mentioned earlier, Joe. He did the interviews yesterday and today, so people are still thinking about the interview. And he now drops New Trafford.
Yeah, no, no. It's like ah, yeah, yeah.
That
It's
that
it's it's it's
architectural
it's
genius.
it's almost as if like Woodward got some consulting hours this week, man, because it seems like a classic. Just heartstrings. Let's get that carrot out there. Let's get that carrot out there. But it's only a matter of like I think the time that Ineos has to play those games is a lot less than previous regimes with Woodward. Like this,
Yeah,
the fans are not going to play, not going to fall for the okey doke again.
I
Not
believe
as
so.
quickly. It's that time is becoming closer and closer and closer.
Right,
So
right. Let's close up. Louis, last words, summarize.
Yeah, look, first you throw up the picture again. Whatever this net thing is, scrap
I don't
it.
know what the fuck. It's
Yeah,
supposed to be
no,
like.
scrap
I
it,
think it's
please, for the
supposed
love
to.
of God.
No, no, no. Wait a minute.
Everybody making the circus jokes right now.
It's
But
supposed.
look,
It's supposed to
They
have
even make
like. It's
circus
supposed to.
jokes when we're putting
It,
in 100,000
yeah,
on.
no,
So that's
they're
fine.
saying
it,
they're
it,
saying it's
it,
supposed to like get solar energy and
Yeah.
like trap
incorrect.
water. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yes.
We're trapping
Yeah.
water. It's
Yep.
England. You
Yep.
guys import
Let,
that shit
I'm
anyway.
all for new technology, mate.
Yeah, yeah.
let me
Solar
end on
panels.
this. Let me end on this note. And I will direct my final comments directly at Sir Jim, even though he'll probably definitely never hear my words.
Oh no, he's definitely watching the show.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
Definitely.
he's
He's got to
watching.
be.
Oh,
He's
he's
got to
definitely watching.
subscribe, right?
You gotta hit him
Um,
in the grassroots.
and honestly, my last comment actually kind of goes to that, which is if look at the end of the day, if say the club went belly up, right? Say we were absolutely in the shit, we had no money, and um, to look to the future, he needs to look really hard at the past and look what Manchester United is all about. And again, I've always said this, but like, again, doing the tour today and walking around the ground and
It gave you a
engaging,
Mhm.
different perspective.
Okay.
this club was finished. This club was absolutely finished. Everybody wrote this. They were going to close the doors in 1958.
Yeah.
Club lost almost the entirety of what was considered the best football club in the
Yep.
world.
Yep.
And Matt Busby, with no money and in the hospital for 2 months and on crutches and all this kind of stuff,
Yep. He was there. I
rebuilt.
prayed for him twice that he was
But
going
but
to
he
pass.
he rebuilt the club with young talent
Local
that
lads.
grown within that was grown within Manchester. And if it's local lads, that's absolutely phenomenal. But we're in a day and age where it doesn't necessarily have to be local. But
No.
find
Mhm.
if
Yep.
you find the youngest talent class talent and really nurture and really build from those roots, I think that is how you get back to the heights and the longevity. And look, people will say you can't go out and win anything big with kids. Well, you know what? Matt Busby did it, and
I
maybe you
know
don't
times
go
have
out.
changed.
Maybe you
Times have
don't go out
changed.
and maybe you don't go out and win with a squad of 18 young players under the age of 20 and local lads and all this. Maybe you don't, but what you do is you create a foundation, a solid
Yes.
foundation that says,
Yes.
you know what? Okay, Luke Shaw's injured for
Oh God.
7 years.
Just hearing the name.
You go you walk down the hall, you knock on the academy director's door and say, give me the five left backs that we've been working on. And he says, here you go. Here's the top three. And then okay, you know,
Amas, Amas, Amas.
maybe it's on us, but honestly, that's really what it is. If you want to save this football club, you have to go back to what it's about, and it's about building talent. It's about
Right.
building players.
Right. Okay. Joe, summarize quickly.
I will say that I'm still a skeptic of Ineos. Certainly still a skeptic of the Glazers. I understand that the marketing team is the only thing that's world class at this club is the marketing team. That marketing team, again,
Facts.
mm, straight to the heartstrings, right? Shout out to Gary Neville that had a actual decent interview. It wasn't. I
Yep.
know he's still connected to the team in some way. Um, he pulled back, of course, when it pressed him a little bit more when it came to the Glazers. Obviously, the business partners can't do that, right? But it was a good interview. Give us a little bit more insight. He could have just told us to fuck off and just kept things going the way it is, but he didn't. He showed up. He was vulnerable. He was vulnerable in that
Yes.
interview,
Yes,
right?
he was.
And I see a man that's trying to figure it out like we do.